Hi, viewers, and welcome back to another episode of an insightful discussion with our execution partners. This is Priyambada from SUO Global, and today we are joined by Rebecca Godinho and Rema Aljajeh, partners and co-founders of R&R Law LLP, a Canadian immigration law firm based in Ontario. Through their practice, they advise individuals, entrepreneurs, skilled professionals, and businesses on a wide range of Canadian immigration and global mobility matters. Their work includes helping employers bring international talent to Canada, assisting foreign nationals with temporary and permanent residence applications, and guiding clients through Canada's evolving immigration landscape. Drawing on their experience working with both individuals and corporate clients, they offer practical insights into Canada's immigration programs, current policy developments, and the opportunities and challenges facing those looking to live, work, invest, or establish businesses in Canada. We are delighted to have them here today to share their perspectives on Canadian immigration, business mobility, and
Much for
next
having us
destination.
here, Priyambada. It's a pleasure to be here today and really excited to get into this conversation with you.
Likewise. So, shall we get started?
Sure, yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, so for the first question, I wanted to get your insights on the Canadian startup visa, since a lot of our viewers here are founders or entrepreneurs, so this might be relevant to them. So, Canada recently made major changes to its startup visa program. What do you think? Like, what does this actually mean for entrepreneurs and founders who were planning to immigrate to Canada?
Well, these changes represent one of the biggest shifts in Canadian business immigration in over a decade. After years of growing backlogs and concerns about the quality and integrity of some applications, Canada effectively paused this program as of January 2026 this year. Now, applications are no longer being accepted, and the special SUV work permit pathway was also discontinued as late of 2025. However, existing applications are still being processed, and applicants who already held qualifying 2025 commitment certificates were given a limited transition period. For entrepreneurs who were planning to rely on the SUV program, now unfortunately this means that this pathway is no longer available for them. Many of our immigration lawyers and colleagues in the immigration field have described this as a reset rather than simply just a closure. And we actually agree with that. We think that there are several factors behind this decision, and I can mention some of them is that the extremely large processing backlogs and the concerns about the misuse of the designated organizations. Also, applications that lack genuine innovation. And also, we think that the government's desire is to focus on higher impact businesses. Now, in practical terms, entrepreneurs now need to rethink their immigration Canadian strategy rather than assume that traditional startup visa program route still exists.
Thank you so much for your insights on this topic. I'm sure our viewers will find it very helpful. So, in furtherance thereof, do you think that these changes are just temporary in nature, or do they reflect a bigger paradigm shift in Canada's overall immigration priorities, since the landscape has undergone a massive change in the last couple of years?
Right. Well, I believe that this reflects a broader shift in Canadians' immigration policy. Over the last 2 years, Canada has reduced overall immigration targets and has moved towards a more selective type of approach that emphasizes on economic impact, labor shortages, sustainability, and program integrity. Um, We think that the government is not moving away from entrepreneur immigration entirely. No, actually, rather, Canada appears to be moving away from, I can say, a volume based approach towards a quality based approach. We had a message from Ottawa that states Canada still wants entrepreneurs, but it wants entrepreneurs who can demonstrate real investment, job creation, innovation, and long term economic benefit. Also, IRCC has indicated that new entrepreneur model are being developed, suggesting that business immigration will continue, but likely with a stricter selection criteria and stronger oversight. So I think, in my view, this is not simply a temporary pause. No, it reflects a large shift of Canada's immigration priorities.
Becoming stricter. So, following this, I had another question which I thought our viewers might be interested in. So, for entrepreneurs who are still interested in Canada in 2026, what immigration options do you think are still available which they can avail for themselves?
Well, I can say despite the closure that's happening with the SUV program, there are still several options remain available for whoever is interested. One of them is the provincial entrepreneur programs. As many may know, that provinces continue to operate entrepreneur streams under their PNP programs. These programs generally require, in general speaking, of course, a minimum investment, business management experience, active participation in business, and job creation commitments. I can give examples of some of the provinces that might come to my mind, as British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba has also, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and also a lot of other provinces still offer entrepreneur pathways. Now, recently, Ontario has proposed with a new stream, because they had a stream previously, but they closed it, or paused it, I can say. Now they are proposing a new one, but they did not confirm any details as of yet. The second option I can discuss is C11, Significant Benefit Work Permit. This is a type of an LMIA exempt work permit that allows entrepreneurs to establish or purchase a business in Canada if they can demonstrate that their activities will provide a significant economic, social, cultural benefit to Canada. Now, many lawyers view this as one of the most important remaining federal options for founders. Um, just to conclude that, I think that Canada has not closed its doors for entrepreneurs. Rather, it is redefining what kind of entrepreneurship it wants to attract.
Thank you again for sharing your insights. Moving forward, I wanted to know what, in your opinion, are the realistic expectations today when it comes to processing times, application scrutiny, and chances of
Of
approval.
course.
Since people tend to be more surprised by the actual hurdles which come. Because even though there are hurdles at the time of application, there is a certain level of understanding that is required. But once things are in a flow, when the applications are being processed, that is when a lot of hurdles come up. So, what, as per you, are the realistic hurdles which people can expect to?
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's a great question. Let's go into application scrutiny first. So, the reality is that immigration has faced much more scrutiny, I would say, in the past couple of years as compared to 5 or 6 years ago when Rima and I actually got started in this field. And that's when the pandemic was happening and Canada has opened its doors to rebuild the economy. Now, due to concerns with fraud and addressing the backlogs, As Rima mentioned, IRCC is much more focused on program integrity and ensuring that applications actually meet the requirements. So I'd say for all types of business immigration applications, officers are actually checking to see whether the business is actively operating, whether the businesses are meeting their commitments, whether, for example, for the SUV program, whether the business plans are being implemented, and if the applicant actually continues to meet the criteria of the program from the time of submission of the application to the time of the decision or the approval, hopefully. So we really we advise all of our clients, businesses and applicants alike, to make sure they maintain records, accurate records of all their business activities from the time of submission to approval. Now, when it comes to processing times, they can fluctuate considerably. So some processing times are subject to change on a weekly basis. Some are on a monthly basis, depending on the type of application that's being submitted. We're finding that work permit applications being submitted from outside of Canada, generally the processing times are being honored, as long as there's no previous, refusal on the file or any other concerns, depending on, their nationality and which country they're coming from. On the other hand, PR applications are experiencing significant delays, especially under the PNP programs, and of course the startup visa program as well, where they are extending well beyond what applicants initially anticipated. So in those situations, we actually advise clients to obtain what's called GCMS notes, which is basically a detailed record of an applicant's file. So when an application is submitted to IRCC, officers start making their notes. There might be one or several officers, reviewing the file. And so you can always submit the GCMS notes request. It takes about 30 days, calendar days. And then once you receive it back, you can see, where your application's standing, if there's any concerns on the file, if it's just been stalled, and then that's your opportunity to actually, provide more supporting documentation as necessary to address those concerns. Now, lastly, as far as the chances of approval, we think that well-prepared applications have a very high chance of success, and that's why applicants actually choose to retain our services, because we make sure that we have a very high attention to detail. We take compliance very seriously, and so as long as the applicants are following the requirements and we make sure that they do when they're working with us, they definitely place themselves in the strongest possible position for approval.
Okay, that sounds really insightful.
Oh, I think you're on mute.
That's actually very insightful, and I'm sure it will be very much helpful for our clients who would possibly consider moving in, because these are the things which I believe, because even though on statute it is something else, like let's say the time says 1 month or 2 months, but in reality that does take a lot of time. So
exactly.
Moving forward, what alternative options do you think may still work for founders or key employees and multinational companies?
Yeah, so for multinational companies, we always kind of look to the intercompany strategy, because when multinational corporations, say, have a number of branches around the world and they're looking to expand into Canada or start a new office here, they're generally looking to move their high-level executives, senior managers, specialized knowledge employees into Canada. And so usually if they have been working for the sending company for a period of 1 year in the last 3 years, they're generally eligible. So that's sort of the first category that we look at. Now, if they're not meeting that category of requirements, Canada has various employer-specific work permit options under international trade agreements and other immigration programs and public policies. So an example is CETA, which is an international trade agreement between Canada and European Union member states. We have CUSMA, which is between Canada, the US, and Mexico. And there's various other nations, agreements with other nations. So it basically depends on the applicant's nationality, their qualifications, the role that they're being transferred under. So we always sort of check those first. So what happens a lot of the times, it's a phased approach. So a company may first establish operations in Canada through a temporary work permit, such as under the Global Talent Stream, for example, or any other appropriate work permit category. And then they explore PR options, usually after 1 year, because that's when they tend to meet, the score options or the eligibility criteria.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And one last question, which I thought listeners might have. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about Canadian business immigration?
Oh, that's a good one. So I would say one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is just simply investing money in Canada automatically leads to PR. In reality, most business immigration programs require much more than a capital investment. For example, applicants are generally expected to actively manage or contribute to the business. Now, another misconception is that having a company abroad automatically qualifies someone for a work permit in Canada, which is not true. Canadian immigration authorities will closely examine factors such as the legitimacy of the foreign business, the proposed Canadian operations, the applicant's role, and whether the immigration requirements are actually met. I guess the last one would be, how immigration officers are assessing business applications. They're not only, looking at it the way investors would. They're actually evaluating whether the legal requirements are actually being met and whether the application is being supported by credible evidence. So, that's where we come in to make sure, all of those are met. And that's just, a recurring theme. It's all about meeting the regulatory requirements. And that's what we seek to do as the practitioner, just making sure line by line, checking to make sure that all the requirements are being met. If there's any gaps in the applications, we always go back to the applicant, and so that we can address it within the application so it's as perfect as possible. And we generally seem to have great results with that. So
I'm sure that clients, they receive excellent guidance and hence the high success rate. And on that note, I can assure our viewers that if you have any queries or if you have any plans relating to Canada, then SUO Global and R&R Law can surely work out the best solution for you, give you the best guidance, and handhold you throughout every step of the way.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank you
such
so
a pleasure talking with you today, Priyamvada. And yeah, we're happy to answer any questions or, assist with the applications. And we hope to have many such conversations in the future with you as well.
Likewise, it was a pleasure having you both with us today. Thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.